This was one of the last pictures taken by Dutch hikers Kris Kremers and Lissane Froon before they mysteriously vanished in a jungle in Panama. What was disturbing about their case was the discovery of one of the girls' scattered body parts throughout the site where they disappeared, and the mysterious photographs that they took with their camera, which were later recovered with their belongings. What happened to these two girls during their hiking trip? And more importantly, what were they telling us from the photographs they took? Let's dig deep into the mysterious disappearance of Kris Kremers and Lissane Froon. Kris Kremers and Lissane Froon both grew up in Amersfoort, Utrecht, a large city in the Netherlands. Kremers was described as a creative, responsible, and dutiful individual, while Froon was described as outgoing, athletic, and a very active volleyball player. The two got along and became close in no time. Later, Kremers had just finished her cultural social education studies, specializing in art education at the University of Utrecht. Meanwhile, Froon finished her degree in applied psychology from Deventer, a city in the province of Overijssel, Netherlands. The two girls who were now graduates wanted to do something different for a change. They decided to move in together. Froon moved in with Kremers in a dorm room in Amersfoort, and the two of them worked in a cafe named In den Kleinen Hab. For 6 months, the two girls saved up money so they could travel to Panama, a trip that they had been planning for quite a while. It would be what was considered a gap year, where the two would go on a 6-week vacation and teach the local children of Panama while learning Spanish and exploring the country through hiking and touring. It would have been the perfect vacation for the fresh graduates. However, unbeknownst to them, this trip would be their last. On March 15, 2014, Kremers and Froon arrived in Panama. They decided to explore the country by hiking and touring. For the first 2 weeks of their stay, they decided to spend it in Colón Island, where they were able to sharpen their Spanish skills enough that they could communicate with the locals. Finally, on March 29th, they were able to reach their final destination of Bouquet, Chiriquí. However, they were put off by their accommodation because they were apparently a week early. Kremers, who had been carrying a diary all this time, made a note about this incident, stating that the local staff was rude and not at all friendly. Tomorrow they will try and get a hold of the head teacher. This was a real disappointment. In response to this, they decided to find a different accommodation by staying with a local family that hosted international students. On April 1st, Kremers and Froon met with the owners of the family house, Miriam Guerra. Because they wanted to see as much of the city of Bouquet as they could, they booked a tour guide to show them around the area for April 2nd, 2014. However, Kremers and Froon were far too enthusiastic to wait for another day. By 11 a.m. on April 1st, they decided to venture into the area surrounding the active Baru volcano near the town of Bouquet. This area was relatively easy to explore and posed no problems for hikers. Even when some tourists got lost in the past, they were able to find their way back into town eventually. Just before leaving, the two girls posted on their Facebook status stating that they were planning to roam around the city of Bouquet for the entire day. Afterward, they went to lunch with two young Dutchmen and then proceeded to head to the forest. With only the dog accompanying them, they asked a local innkeeper for directions on how to get back into town. They were told to take a taxi. Equipped with a single backpack and accompanied by Blue, a local dog known throughout the community and belonged to the owners of a nearby restaurant called Il Pianista, Kremers and Froon said their goodbyes and set out into the forest along the Pianista Trail, a route that was generally known to be moderately challenging and, according to local guides, would take around 3 hours to complete. However, this was a very popular area for hiking, so anyone exploring it would probably meet other hikers as well. As nightfall approached, Blue came back into town unharmed, but without Kremers and Froon. The owners of the restaurant were alarmed by this and told the host family. However, because they were unsure of the girls' whereabouts, they waited until the next morning to alert the authorities. On April 2nd, the following day, Kremers and Froon were supposed to meet with their tour guide that would take them on a private walk of Bouquet. However, after waiting for them for a while, the guide realized that the two Dutch girls were not coming for their appointment. They were now considered missing. The host family was informed about this and the authorities were alerted. On April 3, an aerial search of the forest was conducted by the authorities while the locals explored the surrounding lightly wooded areas and village on foot. However, they did not find the two girls. 3 days later, Kremers and Froon were still missing. Now in a state of panic, the two girls' parents flew from the Netherlands to Panama and brought with them their police, dog units, and Dutch detectives. They conducted a full-scale search of the forests for 10 grueling days. However, the young girls were still not found. In trying to find answers, the parents initially offered $3,000 as a reward for information that would lead to Kremers and Froon's whereabouts. However, as they grew desperate, they increased that reward by $30,000. Because of this large amount, the police were pelleted by tips from various unreliable sources. As a result, they lost valuable time in trying to check out the information. Additionally, the case had garnered much attention from the news and media, which gave the authorities a harder time with the investigation. Days, weeks, and months had passed, and Kremers and Froon were still not close to getting found. After 10 hopeless weeks, finally, the police had a breakthrough. On June 14, a local woman turned up at the police station and brought with her Froon's backpack. She claimed that as she was taking a bath in the Culebra River, she noticed the backpack within some driftwood at the shore near huge boulders. She approached it and upon investigating, saw that it contained some important items that someone might need. The woman was from a hamlet, a small settlement that has no central place of worship and no meeting point, in Alto Romero in the Bocas del Toro province. This was extremely unusual because the woman found the backpack 5 miles away from where the girls were thought to be hiking. What's even stranger was that Alto Romero is not even mapped. Here's what the distance between the two places look like. Between these two places, there are rough terrains, ravines, rivers, cliffs, and dangerous creatures. People do not simply veer off course for 5 miles, especially in the depths of the jungle. How did the two girls reach that far in their hike? The backpack contained nothing unusual: 2 pairs of sunglasses, $88 in cash, a water bottle, a pair of bras, Froon's passport, a dark gray Canon camera that belonged to Froon, and the two girls' phones. They were all in good condition. The police analyzed the phone and realized that the girls were trying to contact help a few hours into their hike. At 4:39 p.m., a first distress call from Kremers' iPhone was initiated. A few minutes later, at 4:51 p.m., Froon's Samsung Galaxy initiated another distress call. However, because of the lack of reception in the area that they were in, none of their calls went through. This was when strange things started to happen. On April 4th, Froon's Samsung was exhausted at around 5 a.m. and the phone was never used again. However, Kremers' iPhone had been turned on and off in search of reception. Between April 5th and 11th, the iPhone was turned on multiple times, but the PIN was entered incorrectly. Finally, on April 11th, the phone was turned on at 10:51 a.m. and turned off at 11:56 a.m. It was the last time the phones were used. Could it be that for 11 days, the girls were lost in the jungle? Or was there something more sinister at play here? Finally, authorities turned their investigation to the girls' camera. At first, they found nothing unusual. The photographs were of the girls enjoying the early hours of the hike. Photos like this were seen. And this. Again, nothing unusual so far. However, as the investigators looked further, what they saw sent chills down their spine. To call the photographs strange would be an understatement. Suddenly, these were what the girls took. And this, and most disturbing of them all, this photo. This appeared to be the back of Kremers' head with what looked like a bloodstain in her hair. What happened to her? However, the strange circumstances did not stop there. In the camera, 90 photographs looked like the images beforehand, all taken 10 days after the girls went missing. Additionally, these unsettling images were all taken in the dead of the night, between 1 and 4 a.m. What were the photographs about? More importantly, What were the girls looking at? Authorities were baffled and the parents were distraught. Unfortunately, the most disturbing piece of evidence regarding the whereabouts of Kremers and Froon was only about to be discovered by the police. The unsettling images in the camera prompted the police to investigate further the area where the woman found Froon's backpack. As authorities scoured the area by the riverbank, they found Kremers' shorts atop a rock. For 2 months, nothing else was discovered. However, by June 19, 2014, the most disturbing pieces of evidence were discovered by police. A boot that belonged to Froon was found in a nearby bushes. Upon closer inspection, police realized that her foot was still inside it. Soon a pelvis and 33 skeletal fragments were discovered scattered along the same riverbank. DNA testing was conducted, and afterward, the police confirmed that these remains belonged to Kremers and Froon. The disturbing details of the story did not end there. Froon's bones seemed to have decomposed naturally, as there were still pieces of flesh attached to them. However, Kremers was another story. Her bones were white and looked bleached. Later analysis showed that a natural chemical, such as lime, was used for the bleaching process. The police were left baffled by the evidence. Instead of finding answers, more questions had piled up. What in the world happened to these girls? As the investigation pushed further, more unsettling details emerged. First, the skulls of Kremers and Froon were never found. According to experts, if a body had decomposed naturally due to a natural cause of death, the larger pieces of the bones would be intact, hence the skull should have been in the area. Second, there were no scratches on the bones. The only way for the bones to have been fragmented or pulverized was through the use of great force. However, there was no indication of it. Also, if the bodies were chewed by animals, there would be signs of bite marks and scratches. Third, there were no signs of moisture in the backpack, meaning the girls could not have fallen into the river. Fourth, as mentioned before, the items and remains of the girls were 5 miles away from where they were supposed to be hiking. Fifth, Froon's flesh was still in its initial stages of decomposition when they were found. The coroner's office even suggested that it might have been stored in a cool place. Sixth, the phones were never used outside of business hours. People speculated that the girls might have tried to reach out to authorities when their captors were out for work. Seventh, 4 days after the 2 girls disappeared, a photo of 2 foreigners, possibly the 2 young Dutchmen, and 2 women with a brunette and red hair, possibly Kremers and Froon, showed up on the phone of a drowned gang member. Because of the nature of their disappearance, the 2 girls' disappearance is the subject of countless theories. Some believe that the 2 girls were simply injured due to an accident and died of natural causes. Another theory was that at some point during their hike, they lost their way. After hours of walking, they were starting to feel the effects of starvation and dehydration. However, because there was no reception, the girls were not able to call for help. With this theory, people speculated that the reason for the photographs in the camera was because the girls found themselves lost in the jungle at night and were trying to navigate through the pitch-black darkness. Another theory proposed that Kremers and Froon were attacked by vicious animals in the jungle. However, the analysis of the bones ruled this theory out. One of the most harrowing theories is that the 2 girls were murdered. This was one of the last few happy pictures taken before the first distress call from the girls was recorded. According to the theory, after this photograph, the 2 girls were murdered already. This was supported by the lack of goodbye notes from the girls, suggesting that a person who knew that they were going to die would leave the last note for their loved ones. Additionally, throughout the 90 nighttime photographs, not a single one of the girls' faces was seen, as if they did not want to be seen at all. The theory stated that it was the murderer who was taking the photographs in the hopes of misdirecting authorities. Another harrowing theory that could explain the girls' disappearance was the presence of a hostile indigenous tribe that killed and sacrificed people. Most of the different indigenous tribes in Panama are peaceful. However, some believed in and practiced human sacrifice. In January 2020, one indigenous tribe captured people, tortured them, and finally sacrificed them as offerings to God. However, this all happened far from the location where the remains of the 2 girls were discovered, so this theory did not have much evidence. After months of investigation, authorities never did figure out what really happened to Kris Kremers and Lissane Froon. For cases as mysterious and disturbing as this one, there will always be theories that will pop up in an attempt to shed light on the events of April 1, 2014. This is one of the most unsettling mysteries out there. If there's anything to learn from this, it's that a rainforest is a dangerous place. What do you think happened to the two girls? Let me know your thoughts. If you want more hair-raising stories like these, make sure you're tuned in on the channel. I hope to see you on the next production. Have a great day.